Well, good afternoon, Central Georgia. We're a little bit more than a day away from the expected arrival of any wintry precipitation, and now the forecast is more clear in terms of what we're going to expect throughout this upcoming weekend in terms of wintry weather. So let's look at the in-depth review of the forecast. I'm going to take this full screen, and I'm going to go over the weather impact alert just one more time. So we have the weather impact alert starting tomorrow. Now the timing, our understanding of the timing is now more clear. It's going to start Saturday late evening, potentially late night, and then this weather impact alert goes through all of Sunday and into Monday morning. However, we expect much of the freezing rain and ice to occur Sunday morning. And then by Sunday afternoon, we actually could see some thunderstorms in the forecast. But the reason why we have the weather impact alert until Monday morning is because temperatures are expected to be below freezing throughout the morning. So because of that, anything that falls within Saturday and Sunday could potentially refreeze once again for Monday morning. So for places that do see any wintry weather, they could see hazardous and slippery road conditions. And if you experience just enough ice accumulation, you have the potential for power outages. However, our confidence is higher for impacts farther north of Macon, north of I-16. And we are confident to say that most of the risk will come within these areas for north central Georgia. Now looking at the live cam all across our area, we are cloudy today. Current number right now in Macon, 56 degrees. And the headlines show that we could once again see a small rain chance today, just like yesterday. A couple of scattered light rain showers for the rest of the afternoon and evening. Then the wintry mix is possible tomorrow evening. But once again, this will be mainly for our northern counties. So looking at the satellite and radar, we have some scattered showers right now for places south of I-16. So most of Houston County is receiving some light rain. We're also seeing the same thing for Bleckley County, the southern end of Twiggs County, Pulaski County, Dooley County receiving some rain, and Macon County. And if we extend the view, we are currently tracking that low pressure system that is eventually going to kickstart all of this mess throughout the weekend, not only for our area, but for the entire South. So as you can see, we are seeing some scattered rain near central Texas, south of Dallas, south of Lubbock, and even some wintry mix in those areas. That is the low pressure system that will bring in just enough moisture to interact with this Arctic air towards the north. So here's a look at all the temperatures across the nation, and you can see that Arctic Canadian air towards the north settling in towards the Great Plains. You can see Kansas, Missouri, Illinois seeing temperatures below 10 degrees. 2 degrees actually is being experienced in Kansas City. Then in places such as Nashville, Little Rock, Oklahoma City, experiencing upper 20s and upper 30s. Then in our neck of the woods, we are just south of that frontal boundary, and we're experiencing warmer temperatures in the 50s and even 60s at this current moment. But what's going to eventually happen is that low pressure system is going to interact with that colder air, bringing in moisture, and eventually that moisture will interact with that colder air towards the north, and that is when we could potentially see the start of all this mess all across the South. That's when that low pressure system will then cause that widespread ice and snow for the United States, for the South. So starting tonight, all that wintry mix will eventually expand. So we'll have a swath of freezing rain for much of Texas, a large swath of snow across the Great Plains and the Mississippi River Valley. This takes us into tomorrow morning. That system starts to head towards the east, towards our area. And we're going to be dry throughout much of tomorrow. And then eventually we'll see the system's arrival tomorrow late night, potentially Sunday early morning. And that's when you can see the shades of pink in central Georgia in our neck of the woods. Here's a look at the future view, just to show you what we can expect for our area. So the future view shows clear, or not clear stuff. This future view doesn't show cloud cover, but it shows some light sprinkles scattered rain showers throughout the rest of the day today. Once we get into tomorrow, we're going to be dry. And then once we get into Saturday evening, sprinkles will start to develop, and then that system will eventually arrive towards the peak state by the late night Saturday. And that is when we could potentially experience freezing rain for our most northern counties right around 10 to 11 o'clock. By the early morning, this swath of freezing rain will eventually expand. Now, this model shows freezing rain coming as south as Houston County and Pulaski County. I really don't buy that. I think much of the risk for freezing rain will be confined for places north of Macon. But this model shows that the bulk of the freezing rain will end by the mid-morning. So by 9 to 10 o'clock in the morning, and we will be dry. And then you'll probably notice another line of rain and storms. That is a squall line, in which we would call in the meteorological terms, coming towards us. And that is when we could potentially see the risk of thunderstorms throughout Sunday afternoon, and will progressively move through our area throughout the afternoon and evening, bringing us widespread rain and potential rumbles of thunder. And then we will be clear throughout Monday morning. Now, I heard a lot of people talk about that we won't see any rain Monday morning. There's no need for the weather impact alert. Well, that's because temperatures are going to be below freezing once again Monday morning. And around that time, all that rain that falls on Sunday and all that freezing rain from earlier Saturday and Sunday morning could potentially refreeze once again, even though the conditions are going to be completely dry throughout Monday morning. Here's a look at another model, and it shows the same thing. Now, this model once again does not show cloud cover, so we're not expecting any clear skies throughout the rest of the day, today and tomorrow. But this only shows precipitation, just like the last model. And once again, it shows a consistent timing in terms of the start of the freezing rain for north central Georgia by 10 o'clock, expanding more towards the south. But this model, and I'm a little bit biased towards this model because this model correctly predicted the snow that we received on Sunday, and this model shows all the wintry mix and freezing rain just north of Macon. And this aligns more to the maps and the watches and warnings that have been issued by the National Weather Service. So it shows all of that freezing rain and wintry mix continuing throughout the morning. This is as far as this model goes, but we saw the other model showing that most of the wintry precipitation should end by the late morning, so by 9 to 10 o'clock. Now, of course, a lot of people are going to be asking, how could thunderstorms form when we're expecting cold weather? How can we go from wintry precipitation to potential thunderstorms in just less than 24 hours? Now, of course, this is a twist coming from books and movies. It's insane that this is happening. This forecast is absolutely crazy, but it looks like we have all the ingredients necessary for all of this to occur throughout the weekend. So going over the temperatures, we're going to see mid-40s throughout tomorrow morning. It's going to be a mild morning, not overtly cold. But as you can see, you can start to see the influence of the wedge. Now, the wedge is going to play a very important part, and the wedge is probably one of the main reasons why we could potentially see thunderstorms on Sunday afternoon. And you can see it here. By Saturday afternoon, we'll see temperatures different in the north as compared down to the south. By the afternoon, we could have temperatures into the mid-50s for our most southern counties like Crisp, Wilcox, Telfair County, and then mid-40s up towards the north. Eventually, we're going to get really cold by Saturday late night. We'll be around freezing, around the time where the wintry mix and freezing rain will begin. And then by Sunday morning, most of that time will be below freezing, helping the development of any wintry precipitation. This is where things get spicy. Sunday afternoon, notice temperatures in Albany 70 degrees. We could see similar numbers in our most southern counties such as Dooley, Crisp, Wilcox, Pulaski, Dodge, Telfair, and Wheeler County. Then notice up towards the north, mid-40s could continue for places such as Macon and Dublin. So this is going to be a drastic temperature difference compared to our north central Georgia and south central Georgia. because of that temperature difference, that will cause that will cause the atmosphere to go a little bit crazy, and that could cause a line of storms, in which we would call a squall line. Now, this is the reason why we are expecting potential thunderstorms on Sunday afternoon. It's all due to the wedge. And now, because of the potential for thunderstorms, most of the south on Sunday is within a level 1 out of 5 risk for severe weather. And even our most southern counties are within that risk for severe weather. So parts of Crisp County, Wilcox County, and Telfair County are all within that risk. And they could potentially see a strong storm or two and gusty winds because of that squall line that will occur Sunday afternoon. Now, here's a graphic that shows a little bit more about the wedge and why the potential for maybe some strong storms could happen on Sunday. So all of this is caused by a high pressure system up towards the northeast, pushing even more colder air towards the south. But what's happening is that the cooler air is being backed off against the mountains. So because of that, colder air typically lingers halfway through our area, just around the Macon area near the fall line. This colder air and moisture interact, and that leads to days where we'll have insane temperature differences compared to north and south central Georgia. So this is the reason why the forecast for this weekend could get really interesting, and that temperature difference between north and south central Georgia will drive our thunderstorm chances for this upcoming Sunday. So enough of those thunderstorm chances. I know everyone is here because of the ice. So here is a colorful map by the National Weather Service, and this shows the levels of the potential impacts all across the Peach State. You may notice this is only for the northern half of Georgia. So we can see for northeast Georgia, that's where certainty is high, in which we will see the worst of the impacts from this wintry storm. So this encompasses areas in the Georgia mountains, including Clayton, all the way to Athens. And we have a moderate risk for impacts, and that covers most of the Atlanta metro, northwest Georgia, and then even parts of central Georgia. So the northern tips of Putnam, Jasper, and Hancock County, and then the rest of north central Georgia. So the majority of places north of Macon within our viewing area is within a low potential for impacts. So that is the current thinking by the National Weather Service, and this is because of the recent model trends in terms of the potential accumulation of ice that we could receive. So here's one of the main models that we have used for predicting ice. This is the GFS model, and it only shows ice accumulations for the main 3 northern counties on top of our viewing area. So Jasper, Putnam, Hancock County, these are the only 3 counties that this model is showing ice. This is the European model, only shows just the northern tips of, once again, Jasper, Putnam, and Hancock County. This is the graph model. This is the short-range model that we mainly use. This is the estimated ice for our area, and it shows more places within north central Georgia receiving ice from 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. And then this is the North American model. This is another model that we use, and it doesn't show any ice accumulation for central Georgia. So taking all of those models and everything that we received from the National Weather Service, this is the ice forecast for our area. So once again, places south of Macon, you could see some isolated pockets of freezing rain, but I think that would melt pretty quickly, especially once Sunday rolls around and we'll experience warmer temperatures for places south of I-16 due to the wedge. So because of that, I think throughout the weekend you will mainly experience rain. Once you get north of Macon, that's where the potential for ice increases. So I think areas north of Macon, north of I-16 could experience 1/10 of an inch of ice to 1/4 of an inch of ice. Then we get towards the northern parts of our northern counties, so Jasper, Putnam, and Hancock County. That's where certainty is higher for larger and more significant impacts, meaning widespread power outages and widespread tree damage as well. But then as we extend the view, and this is in different colors, The worst of the impacts, of course, will be for northeast Georgia. So, of course, the Georgia mountains and areas north of Athens could receive over half an inch of ice, which would just be straight up catastrophic. We were feeling really sad for those areas. Thankfully for our neck of the woods, we're not going to experience anything like that. But if you have any family, if you know anyone within those areas, it'd be best to call them. I'm pretty sure they already know by now in terms of their preparation plans and what they need to do for this upcoming weekend. Now, because of the estimated ice totals, the National Weather Service has issued a winter storm warning for all of North Georgia. So all of North Georgia is within or not even a winter storm warning, an ice storm warning because of the potential for extremely high ice accumulation. But if we zoom in towards our area, central Georgia is still within a winter storm watch, meaning only 6 counties within our viewing area are within this watch, meaning Jasper, Putnam, Hancock, Washington, Jones County. So areas within this watch would have a higher potential of seeing a quarter of an inch of ice, and I'd say higher totals could be possible for places just north in the northern part of Jasper, Putnam, and Hancock County. So this is what we are thinking at the moment. Could see potential ice accumulations for areas north of I-16 ranging from 1/10 of an inch of ice to 1/4 of an inch of ice. And we could potentially see higher totals for areas in the northern tips of Jasper, Putnam, and Hancock County. By Sunday afternoon, things are going to be quite interesting because that's when the wedge will be very influential towards the forecast. Could see potential 60s and 70s for south central Georgia and 40s and 30s for north central Georgia in the afternoon. So because of this, a line of rain and thunderstorms will be possible in the afternoon. After this rain moves through, we would have the potential for refreezing throughout Monday morning as temperatures are expected to be below freezing once again. That could cause some hazardous road conditions on Monday morning. So here is one final recap of the weather impact alert. So once again, this will start later Saturday. We're expecting Saturday evening, late night, especially for the northern counties. The northern counties will be the first areas to see wintry weather, and then it should expand throughout Sunday morning throughout places north of Macon and north of I-16. So the need, stay up to date, avoid the roads, especially if you live north of I-16, and postpone any outdoor plans. And if you live more towards the north, if you're watching from Jasper, Putnam, and Hancock County, and you live north of Eatonton, north of Monticello, and even north of Sparta, it might be best to review your plans, start preparing, especially stocking up on food, and maybe checking out a place that would have extra generators in case power goes out, because the likelihood for those areas are higher for significant impacts rather than places south of Macon. So that's the recap of the weather impact alert and, of course, our forecast for the weekend. Now I'm going to answer any questions throughout the rest of this stream. We're not getting snow. Yeah, we're not going to get snow. So it's going to be quite the opposite of this past weekend in terms of when we receive snow. We're not going to receive anything like that. It would just be ice, freezing rain, which is way worse than snow. Honestly, I'd rather hope for snow at this point. Snow would be a lot better. Sandersville, Georgia. So Sandersville, they're within that winter storm watch. However, if we check the models, it shows that the ice accumulations are not going to be as high as, say, Hancock County. Now, I'm going to pull up the ice forecast. And it shows, once again, 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch possible. So I'd say the worst scenario for Sandersville would be 1/4 of an inch. That would still make driving extremely hazardous, and that could cause some power outages. But I don't think it would be as bad as, say, places up towards the north in Athens and in Clayton, or just in general, northeast Georgia. What about Warner Robins? Warner Robins should just experience mainly rain. You could see some patchy ice, in case some pockets of wintry mix and freezing rain occurs throughout Sunday morning, but that will eventually melt Sunday afternoon when temperatures could potentially go to the 60s and 70s for south central Georgia. So Warner Robins, if you're watching from Warner Robins, Houston County, you should be fine. I'd expect minimal impacts. So twigs should be okay. I think twigs should be okay. I think either you'll experience rain, at most you'll experience 1/10 of an inch of ice. And let me go over this graphic for you. This graphic does a really good job in showing the differences between ice. So I've been mentioning, 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. This is what I mean by this. So 1/10 of an inch, that would cause some ice on trees and power lines, and it may cause some slick spots on the roads and sidewalks, but it wouldn't make travel impossible. You would still be able to drive. You would just have to be extra cautious. Just like last year when we had that snowstorm. Obviously, it was really bad when the snow occurred that day, but the next day, once we experienced melting, we still had some patchy areas of ice, but it was still possible to drive the next day. So it would be just like that. It wouldn't be catastrophic. You wouldn't have to stay in your homes or whatnot throughout the weekend. You could go outside and travel, but you would just have to be extra cautious while driving. Now, when I mean 1/4 of an inch, that's where things get more dangerous. So 1/4 of an inch means it would be really hard to drive, and that's when some power outages could occur because power lines could fall and trees could also be overwhelmed by the ice. So that is my reference. And then, of course, half an inch would be just destructive. It would be really bad. Widespread tree damage and power line damage that could cause outages that could last for days or even weeks. So knowing that, I'm going to go back to that ice forecast. And now I'm seeing people ask more about the location. So knowing that, so Monroe County, they could potentially see a range of 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. So I'd say Monroe County, they would have the potential for a couple outages. It all depends on how much freezing rain falls in your area. So expect some ice in Forsyth. How will severe thunderstorms be in the South Dodge County on Sunday? Any tornado possibilities? Tornado chances are low. And once again, that severe weather risk, it's only for our most southern counties such as Chris County, Wilcox County, and Telfair County. It doesn't even cover all of those counties. So Dodge County, they could potentially see a storm that has extra gusto with it, but I don't think we'll have a really big tornado possibility. Yeah, Macon, Georgia. So they're within that line of seeing patchy ice and seeing mainly rain. So I'd say minimal impacts for Macon. Once again, the most Macon could see would be 1/10 of an inch of ice, maybe a little bit more, but I don't think we'll come close to the amount of ice that would cause power outages. So the chances for power outages for Macon is low. Unadilla and Warner Robins. Unadilla and Warner Robins most likely mainly rain. And then Jones County, yes, appears to be right on the line. Depends on where you live in Jones. If you live more towards the north of Jones, if you live closer to Jasper and Putnam County as compared to Bibb County, then I'd say the chances of you seeing impactful ice are higher. But if you live closer to Macon, then you should be fine. You'd probably see closer to 1/10 of an inch. Power outages for Sandersville. It's definitely possible, especially if you receive 1/4 of an inch of ice. But the impacts wouldn't be as big, and your chances of high ice accumulations are not as high as, say, Hancock County or Putnam County. And then Wilkinson County, I'd say Wilkinson County, depends on where you live. If you live farther south in Wilkinson County, closer to Lawrence County, should be receiving rain. maybe some isolated pockets of freezing rain, but nothing truly impactful. If you live more towards the north, you have a higher likelihood of true ice accumulations, but it would be less of a chance that you would see any power outages. Now, if you live in Dublin, it looks likely that you'll just see mainly rain. And then North Monroe County would have a higher potential of seeing stuff closer to 1/4 of an inch of ice, which could lead to a couple of power outages, but it wouldn't be as impactful or significant as the northern tips of Jasper, Putnam, and Hancock County. Okay, so that will be the end of the stream, but if you have more questions, do not worry. I'll be back later at 4 o'clock, and I'll be doing, once again, another recap. If there are any updates, say with the National Weather Service, probably including a county within a watch or potentially a warning, then of course I'll be covering that later on the stream, and then I'll be answering more questions on Facebook. But for now, I'm going to prepare for that stream. And then Ben Jones, he'll be back for the 5 and the 6 o'clock show, and then he'll also do a stream later tonight at 9 o'clock. So thank you very much, and have a beautiful day.